Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. On my last video we discussed the console.log and document.write methods and what they do. Now today I want to get in variables and how they're initialized and basically used. As I code in the text editor, I'll be explaining how they function and how to properly declare them. So here we go. Alright, let's talk about the variable. Alright, so let's see. Let's get the script tag in here first. Script source. I'll name the index2.js and then close the script tag. Oops. Make sure this is saved. Or make sure this is working correctly. Refresh elements. Yep, it looks like it's working. All right, let's go to the index.js file or index2 and a variable. So a variable you have to initialize if you want to declare a variable, and the way you declare it is just a var. Just call a var, and that's how you would call a variable. Now variables gotta have a name, and it can be any name that you want. But there's just certain parameters how you write those names. So, I mean, you can just simply call a variable a or x, or if you want to be like descriptive, like give it a good like a name, like name, or if you want to be extra descriptive about a name, you can say first name. Notice that the second letter, the second word name, I capitalized it. That's called camel casing. So camel casing is like when the first letter of a variable is lowercase, and then the second word of a variable name that you're trying to give it, it's capitalized. That's what it's called, camel case. You can put a $sign to call a variable. You can do an underscore to call a variable, and that would also work. You can't use a number and then a letter name. It won't work. You can't use JavaScript. It's already a preset word in the language. Like there's just certain words in JavaScript that you cannot use. It won't work as variables. I'll have a list of those names in the description below. So just to give you an example. But for this, let's call this variable name. I'm going to call it name. Right, and name, I'm going to equal it. So you got to give it a value, because if you try to console log it right now, just put name, hit save, save it, check it, refresh it. You go into console, it's not working. Oh, I think I spelled script incorrect. That's why nothing's popping up. So, 1 second. Let me save it again. I typed it too fast. So let's refresh it. Okay, that's weird. It's popping up as Nick. It's not supposed to do that. Because if you give it a variable name but no value and you try to log it, it shouldn't give me anything. But for some reason, it's telling me my name. So I'm gonna X out. Refresh it. Well, let me call the inspector again. Hit refresh. Okay, so now that I hit refresh, you can see right now that there's nothing in the console, and that's because it doesn't have a value. I haven't added a value to it, so it's just undefined. It just doesn't know what it is. So let's give it a value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my name, obviously, to the word name. Actually, you know what? I'm going to delete this. I'm going to put first name. I'm going to be a little extra descriptive this time around. So I'm going to put first name. You can see my camel casing. And I'm going to say in strings, Nick. And then because I changed the the variable name on the first line, on the first statement. So in the console log, if I want to see it inside the Google Chrome inspector, I got to change the name to first name as well. I could just call first name and then my name will appear. Or what I can do is, what I like to do is, I like to call the log with the variable name that I created in strings first, and then put the variable name afterwards. Notice that I put a space to quotations and then the comma here. That's just to add space. There's other ways to do it. I'll show you another time. But I'm going to save this. All right, and then I'm going to go back into the browser, hit refresh. You can see the first name here and then Nick, the name of the first name variable. Let's bring it together here. So let's see. As you can see here, on the first line, I put var first name equal to Nick and as a string and two quotations. And then I console log first name, as like I mentioned, that I like to use my variables in the console log when I test code as first name or variable name in strings. And then I call the variable name by its value. And then if everything is executed correctly, then once I go on the console, then you'll see first name, the string, because remember the string will appear as itself. And then when I put first name, after the string, I put first name variable, and then the value, and then inside the console, you will see the first name value as Nick. All right, so that's how it looks like on the console log. Well, that's how it would look if you console log your first name variable, and that's how it would look in the console. Now, let's say if I want to document.write instead, because remember in the last video we also did a brief discussion on document.write. Now, document.write doesn't show anything in the inspector or on the console. It'll show it directly into the web page. So, web page as in here. So let's see. So I'm going to leave that just the way it is, right? And I'm going to say, let's call another variable, but this time let's call it last name. So I'm going to say var last name, and I'm going to equal that to Santi. And in strings, you can see the quotations in there, right? And then right now, if I want this to be in the browser, I would want to say, I'm going to say document.write. And then the only thing I'm going to do simply is just write the variable name, last name. Hit save. Now, if I did this correctly, it would pop up if I refresh it. So, okay, there it goes right here. Now, that's my last name, appears right here on the inside the JavaScript, inside the Google Chrome or the web page. So, it's that simple. Let's talk about bigger font, right? So, also remember I added on the last video, I added a H1 tag also. So, I'm just going to leave that line of code like just the way it is. I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to add another document.write on the next line. But this time I'm going to write the variable name inside an H2 tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in quotation, make an H2 element inside here. But this time it's going to be that's going to be inside quotation as a string. But once I try to create the variable inside the H2 tags, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a tag here. I'm going to add a plus, and then I'm going to add the name of the variable of last name. Do another plus, and then call a quote, and then I did an H2, so I'm going to save it. So if I did this correctly, I would have another value that was spit my last name, but in a larger font. So let's see. All right, there, cool. There it is. So that's just calling my last name onto directly into the JavaScript or inside the web page, and that's how you would call a document.write on the web page. Um, Now what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna add like another document.write, but this time I'm gonna combine my first and my last name together. It's gonna look like this. So document.write, put the parentheses. I'm gonna add some quotes for string, put h1. Remember the h1 element that we talked about yesterday really quick. If I wanted to make the font bigger inside the document.write method. And then in here I'm just gonna add and put this quote, and I'm gonna add first name, first name, and then I'm gonna add last name. Oh, so it did work. I just don't. I did it incorrectly, so I gotta take this out. No, actually, I leave that in there, and here I would put empty quotes, and then if I'm not mistaken, add another plus, maybe a space in here. Save it. There it is. Now it's space. Now it says, now that we combine them, it says document.write inside the h1 tags. Now I call the variable first name, which is Nick, equal to Nick. And then I added two quotes, or this is what's called an empty string. So I just put a open quote or last quote, and then I hit a space just to give it a space. As you can see here, it gave me my space. And then I called the last name variable here, which is something, which I capitalize here. That's why it comes up like that, capitalize Santi. That's basically it. Okay, now that we briefly talked about variables, we mainly use the variable, I only call the string. And I just wanted to just basically explain how a variable works. But we're going to get deeper into it. We're talking about like different types of data types, like integers and or numbers or true or false, or what they call booleans or objects, and we're gonna mix it in.